Let's have a lesson and discussion on this work. This piece comes from my Volume 2 method book, and there's a link for that book in the description. This comes from the C major section, and in the C major section we've played some scales and some triads and chord shapes, and then we've played a duet or a single line piece using the C major shapes that we talked about, and now we're playing a piece that uses C major and the C major scale and the C major chord shapes we learned. So we're taking all that chord and scale knowledge and repertoire and putting them together in one section to teach you the connections between the two things. And you can see a lot of those connections here. Like when you look at the first measure of this piece, that's a C chord. That C chord that we were working on and the C triads that we played. There it is. We're not playing all of the notes from C, but we're playing the shape overall. So when we would analyze the first measure of this piece, we would say, oh, that's a C major chord. And then, there's little passages in it that also come from the key of C major. So lots of connections to be made there. You don't have to worry about whether you're making all of those connections. Just play it and things will become familiar to you. And then later on, we'll get more in depth about it. Great little piece here in 3/8 time. It's a valse or a waltz. So you're just a good sense of that strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. And even when I play this piece, I don't really count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Even though that's what the time signature is, I really just feel the first beat of each measure. Here, 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 here. And that's an important distinction to be made, right? Because sometimes when we're playing, if we count the beat literally 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it starts to feel a little bit like machine gun fire. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So much banging on that beat. And you could lessen that by going strong, weak, weak, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or a conductor like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. But nevertheless, when you play it, I think the feeling here is really just on one beat per measure. You can kind of feel that here, da, da, here, da, da, here. And that's the thing that occurs sometimes in music, is that you have a structural rhythm, which is really important to have the structure, but the feel of the music doesn't necessarily have to follow that structure exactly. Now, a couple of things to discuss in this piece is just right hand fingering, of course, and then just navigating some of the chord shapes and making sure you're sustaining all the notes. So let's do a walkthrough of the piece and work on that. So two things here. We want to make sure that our left hand holds the notes down within the measure so that it all rings out. We don't want to lift our finger off one of the notes. Also in the right hand, we want to make sure our finger's passing through those strings quite easily. You don't want it to sound blocky, as opposed to, you want to glide through those notes. And you can see when we're playing the top two strings with the accompaniment, we're using A and M. And then for the little scale passage, or the little triad there, we're using I, M, I. And then go back to P, M, A. Then I, M for the little scale. When we go on to the next shape, we're going to use I, M on G and B. Switch back to M-A for those upper strings. And there, we're going to try out using A, M, I, M. that works really nicely there to avoid an awkward string crossing. Don't worry about that. We'll be discussing that later. Then on the last section here, because it's more of a A minor arpeggio, there's our A minor chord. Here's the shape. It's that same shape. It's an A minor chord. We're going to use I, M, A. And we're going to keep our fingers down to let it ring within the bar, within the measure. But then we play our passage with I and M, and then we go back to I, M, A, I, M, A, I, M, I. So we're playing arpeggios, our broken up chords, and then we're playing little melodic scale passages. And little melodic scale passages we're playing like a scale with I, M alternation, and you know, just like we practiced. And then we're playing the chords or the arpeggios with different finger combinations to suit the arpeggio, as I've listed on the page there. It's a really lovely piece. So enjoy it musically. All of the things we talk about in these lessons, they just become part of your muscle memory, and you don't think about them when you're actually playing. And if you're having trouble with any of the particular measures in this piece, just take that individual measure and put it on a loop. Take the first measure and just play it on a loop until all that information goes into your muscle memory and you can play it without thinking. And then your brain doesn't have to be multitasking and thinking about a million things at once. It just commits certain things to muscle memory, and then you focus on the more musical ideas that you want to portray. The only other thing I'll mention in this piece is the layout of the work. So when you're playing this work, you repeat the first section. I didn't repeat things in the performance just to shorten up the video a little bit, but you would repeat the first 2 lines, and then you'd play the next 2 lines and repeat those 2 lines, and then you play the final 2 lines and repeat those 2 lines, and then it says DC al fine, which means dal capo al fine. So then when you have repeated those final 2 lines, you go back to the beginning and you play down to the fine with no repeats. So again, you play the first 2 lines, and then you'd repeat those first 2 lines, and then you'd play the next 2 lines, repeat those 2 lines, and then you'd play the final 2 lines, and then you'd repeat those final 2 lines, and then the da capo you play from the beginning, but you don't do any repeats because we've already heard the material a lot. It's just a return to it. And then you stop at the fine. And that's kind of the structure of the overall piece. Enjoy the piece. Focus on playing musically. You'll build some connections between your scales and chords and the piece, but not in every measure. You're not going to worry about that. If you recognize some of the shapes like C and A minor there, great, that's awesome. If you don't recognize other shapes in the piece, don't worry about it because that's not the focus. The focus is just to combine those 2 things so your sight reading is really confident, and that you're recognizing some of how things work together and some of the shapes, and the technique is contributing to your success of the piece, and then you're just enjoying the repertoire for now.